Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, I want to cover the private taxi driver that took them home. We did hear that it was a private ride. I didn't know if it was a private ride from a personal friend. I didn't know if it was a private ride from what made it a private ride. But the driver who took the two girls home, Kaylee and Madison, that took the two murdered students home the night they were killed, he has broken his silence to tell how he is haunted by the knowledge that his job was to get them home safe, but instead he delivered them to their deaths. I can definitely see how that would really kind of leave a scar. Speaking for the first time and exclusively to dailymail.com, the private taxi driver who was probably the last person to see Kaylee and Maddie alone or alive said, "It's weighed on me. I've replayed that night a million times over trying to think if there was some sign or some detail that something was amiss, but there was nothing. It's not lost on me that my job was to get these girls home safe, but that didn't really help this time." He got them there, right? But in his mind, he feels like he led them to their death. It is approaching 6 weeks since these girls had this happen to them along with Xana and Ethan, right? And so these four, we want justice for them. We want justice. And so the man who drove Kaylee and Madison home has recounted his recollections of that night and claimed that the community is living in fear with little faith in the Moscow Police Department. And as I shared yesterday, the community is living in fear. They're literally locking their doors now, whereas before this, they weren't really locking their doors at home, and they're even carrying a weapon with them. They are living in fear. Now, the police have said that this is targeted, but they have also alerted the community to stay vigilant, to stay alert. And that's why I do this channel, to keep you aware of what could go wrong so that you can stay alert. And so the private taxi driver, speaking on condition of anonymity, anonymously, he said, "I had known Kaylee and Maddie and Xana too. They would occasionally get rides home and there was nothing out of the ordinary about that night." You know, because again, they went to the food truck. He picked them up there. Surveillance footage of Kaylee and Madison, they showed the girls picking up pasta at the grub truck around 1:40 a.m. after ending their evening out at the nearby corner club. And he says, "I picked them up about 1:40, 1:45 a.m. They had their food and they were super excited about their mac and cheese as girls are after they go to the club. They sat in the back and they chatted. They were normal, just like any other night. They weren't upset about anything or talking about anyone." The driver said he was familiar with surveillance footage in which one of the girls appears to be talking about somebody called Adam earlier that evening, but he said they didn't talk about him or any boy on that ride. Moscow police have contacted Adam, who they have described as cooperating with the investigation. And according to the driver, sometimes the girls would talk about boys, but that night they were just excited about their food. There was no apprehension, no weird feelings, no upsetness. There was no nervousness about them. They weren't afraid of anybody. There was nobody following them or following us. He said, "There was absolutely nothing about that ride that was different or abnormal. They were just typical sorority girls talking away, and half the time they don't pay a whole lot of attention to us drivers. We're just kind of doing our thing, driving them home." The driver said he didn't pull right up to the door of the girl's house, stopping instead on the street out front. So he didn't pull in, and so they had to walk in. That's interesting. He said, "I just sort of pulled in front of their driveway. I didn't pull right into the parking lot. I usually try not to do that because that's an easy way to get robbed. I try to stay in positions where I can go either direction so I can get away if I have to. It's never happened, but you hear about these things. But on that night, he saw and felt no threat. In fact, he said, I didn't watch them go all the way in. There were the two of them. It's a relatively safe place. It's not something I would usually sit and watch. Sometimes I absolutely will ask or intervene if I feel a kid needs help. I've taken kids to get their stomach pumped if I feel they have to. This is a college town. These kids are just trying to live their lives. We, the drivers, try to look out for them. They don't need to be preyed on, right? That makes sense. And the fact that Kaylee, Madison, and their friends were so brutally murdered within a couple of hours of him making the drop off has the driver said, it weighed on him. He said, I've been driving here for years and it weighed on me. It was rough to think I was one of the last people to see them alive. When I saw the news on Monday, it occurred to me I was in that neighborhood, but that was before they'd released any names. As soon as I knew for sure it was the girls, I went to the police. Good job, because that's exactly what you should do. He said, swiftly eliminated from inquiries, having provided officers with a wealth of digital data and the timed receipt from the Taco Bell to which he went after dropping the girls back home. In the weeks since the murders, he has watched, he said, with dismay as police have shared little information about this case, and the families of the victims have grown increasingly impatient. He said, I took about a week off of driving when I just stepped back from it all. Those kids deserve justice and they're not getting it. It feels to this community like the police aren't even trying, which is 100% related to how they aren't communicating with the community. People are scared. Most of us have very little faith in the MPD. We can't tell if we are watching qualified investigators who have a handle of the situation or if they are completely at a loss and grasping for straws. And of course, Moscow police, they've pushed back at the suggestion that inexperienced officers, the lead investigator has only been a cop for 2 years, are hampering or have already botched the investigation. They're saying, no way, we got this under control. Well, we have a little faith in that at this time, right? My friends, we want justice for Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan, taken from this world way too soon. My friends, thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. At the end of the day, I just want to be a voice for the victims. I want to let you know what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in so that you could be a little more safer, a little more careful, and a little more prepared in this crazy world we live in. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to being a voice for the victims and serving you again. Have a great day. Peace.